Welcome to Midcurrent, one of the St. Croix Valley's newest churches. One of the questions you may be wondering is, does the world need another church? Does the St. Croix Valley, does Hudson really need another church? And honestly, the answer is no. But what we do think we really need is another kind of church. So Midcurrent was born to be just that, a different kind of church. It is a church for individuals and families who don't currently go to church or have never set foot in a church. It's for people who have given up on church or who haven't found a church that's helped them to see Jesus more clearly and follow him more closely. We knew there was a need to build an honest, authentic community where the real lives of real people were connected to the heart of a real God. And so each week as we gather together, we have an opportunity to create a meaningful church experience for anyone and everyone who walks through our door. For people who grew up in church and people who didn't. For people searching for something to be a part of and people who have been waiting and wanting to take a real step forward in their life and in their faith. We really believe there's a place for everyone at Midcurrent, including you. Especially you. In fact, we believe Midcurrent is the place to be, and we are excited that today you have decided to join us on this journey.
And welcome to Midcurrent Church Online. My name is Haley Leverty. Today is a very special day in that we get to celebrate and be grateful for all the dads in our lives. And not just the dads, the stepdads, granddads, foster dads, and all the amazing mentors who are out there offering their support day in and day out. The dads and role models that we have in our lives wear so many different hats, and each one of them contributes to those around him in unique ways. We weren't even sure where to start when it comes to recognizing some of those traits, so we thought we'd ask the experts.
My favorite thing with my dad is to wrestle with him in my bedroom every night when I'm with him, and he goes to Dairy Queen with me, and we get double fudge cookie dough.
My favorite thing about my dad is that he likes to play football and catch with us.
I like my dad because he plays basketball with me.
I love the players daddy, and I love walk with daddy, and I love giving daddy hugs, and I love
My favorite thing about my dad is how he works to keep the house up, and he taught me that to get what you want, you have to work for it.
What I like about my dad is when he takes me fishing and then we go to Perth so I can go swimming.
My favorite thing about my dad is he makes really cool stuff, and he made like a zip line and a platform, and he also made this castle bed. It's really fun.
My favorite thing about my dad is when he takes us swimming.
What I like about my dad is that he's funny, he's fun to play with, and that he's loving.
My favorite thing about Daddy is that he loves me, and that he lets us go to his mom's cabin, and I really like my daddy. My dad makes me dance and make me laugh. I like that my dad takes me fishing.
My favorite thing about my dad is he's fun.
Yeah. While we can appreciate everything that dads do, we also recognize that days like these can be very difficult as we hold on to the memories of those dads who are maybe estranged or are no longer with us. So to all the dads out there, near and far, happy Father's Day from us to you. And thank you for everything that you do. So we've been rocking the online services for 3 months already. Can you believe that? And although we already know lots of you, we know that for some, this may be your very first time experiencing Midcurrent. And if so, we want to welcome you. A great way to learn more about us and get connected would be to contact Pastor Sten, and you can do that by messaging him at sten@midcurrentchurch.org. I know that he would absolutely love to follow up with you. Even though times have changed and we find ourselves with services that are online right now, Midcurrent still has big plans here in the St. Croix Valley. Our goal is to create spaces where real people and a real God can meet. And if you want to be a part of what we're doing now or in the future, there are 3 ways that you can be giving back to God at Midcurrent right now. The first is to give by using the mailing address, 55 Robin Lane in Hudson, Wisconsin. The second way is to text any dollar amount right from your smartphone to 84321. The third way to give back here at Midcurrent is to do so online at midcurrentchurch.org/give. We want to reach more people for Jesus, and thanks to you, we will continue doing just that. In a moment, we're going to have a time of singing. Our first song is called "The Lord is My Rock." I love those lyrics because they remind me that God is the one that I can always count on. I can lean on Him to be my solid, unwavering foundation no matter what comes my way. He's my rock, and my prayer is that He be yours too.
When the waters rise, my hope is sure. When life falls apart, I stand secure. When my way is dark, your light breaks through. When I don't feel you near, your word is true. Jesus, your love surrounds me. You hold in my life. You hold in my life. The Lord is my rock, and I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. You're with me. The Lord is my rock, and I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. You're with me. When the waters rise, my hope is sure. When life falls apart, I stand secure. Jesus, your love surrounds me. You hold in my life. You hold in my life. The Lord is my rock, and I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. You're with me. The Lord is my rock, and I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. You're with me. You carry us. You rise above. You lift us up. You carry us. You rise above. You lift us up. The Lord is my rock, and I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. You're with me. The Lord is my rock, God, you lifted me out. God, you lifted me out. And I'll tell all the world. God, you lifted me out. God, you lifted me out. And I'll tell all the world. God, you lifted me out. God, you lifted me out. And I'll tell all the world. God, you lifted me out. God, you lifted me out. And I'll tell all the world. God, you lifted me out. God, you lifted me out. And I'll tell all the world. God, you lifted me out. God, you lifted me out. And I'll tell all the You are here. You are here. You're moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here. You're working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here. You are here. You're moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here. Working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Yes, that is who you are. 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 He's a waymaker. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. Never stop working. Never stop. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Life is full of surprises, whether they're good or bad ones. Life is full of events and situations that we cannot control, from the smallest of happenings to even a global pandemic. Last week on our way home from a friend's house, our car decided to seize up and die, completely out of my control. And there are so many things in this world that we do not have control of, from the pandemics to a cancer diagnosis, to car troubles, or a job loss. But we can have faith because we know that God has been and will always be in control, and that He promises better days ahead. And in this next song that we're going to sing, a new song for us as a church, it says that you have not left me alone, though the world has let me down. All my sorrow and pain I will trade for a crown. A popular verse in the Bible that offers encouragement and is often used is Jeremiah 29:11, and it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." And that's great news. God has a plan for us, and it is good. But we need to wait a second. That doesn't mean we won't face any hardships in this life.
or that we won't experience times of doubt and decreasing faith. Because just the verse before that one, in verse 10, God lays down the specifics of his promise, that he will fulfill it after 70 years are completed for Babylon. In other words, yes, God says he will redeem you, but after 70 years in exile. And this is certainly a far cry from our expectation of this verse and what God's plan to prosper us really means. He did have a future and a hope for the Israelites, but it would look far different than they had ever expected. God is in control, and his plans and his purpose for our lives are good, but ultimately they will involve hardships, and they may even seem like he isn't in control. And it's in those times that we need to increase our faith and declare that it is well within our soul.
How can I say it is well when my voice can barely speak? How can I sing you a song in the midst of suffering? Jesus, will you meet me here? Let your peace wash over me. I need you now more than ever. Teach my soul to sing. My God is still in control, and still he reigns on his throne. The mountains may tremble, sea billows roll, I'll sing it is well with my soul. My God is still in control. You have not left me alone, though the world has let me down. All of my sorrow and pain, I will trade it for a crown. Thank you for staying with me when the night was closing in. Wherever my lot, you are still God. I will sing again. Is still in control, and still he reigns on his throne. Though mountains may tremble, sea billows roll, I'll sing it is well with my soul. My God is still in control. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well. tremble, see billows roll. I'll sing it is well with my soul. My God is still in control. My God is still in control. My God is still in control, and still He reigns on His throne. Though mountains may tremble, sea billows roll, I'll sing it is well with my soul. My God is still in control. My God is still in control.
Lord, let that be our prayer today. That in the deepest valleys of life, God, when we are facing difficult times, that we would stand secure knowing that you are in control. And Lord, that we would sing out, "It is well with our soul." Regardless of circumstance, Father, you are in control. You are sovereign, you are almighty and powerful over all things. We put our trust and our faith in you and in your Son, Jesus. Through his name, we are able to worship you and we are able to pray these things. Amen.
Hey, welcome everyone to Midcurrent Church Online. My name is Stan and I am the pastor here. And we are so glad to have you tuning in today, especially all of the dads out there, young and old. Let me wish you a very happy Father's Day. I know that being a dad is one of the greatest joys of my life, but it is also one of the things that adds a ton of pressure to my life. Mostly, I can admit, mostly pressure I put on myself. See, I'm learning a little bit about the personality that I have. I'm learning that I have a personality that makes me feel like I'm constantly being evaluated. And I put that pressure on myself here at church to be the world's greatest leader. I put that pressure on myself in social situations, like I got to be the world's best friend, right? Did I say the right thing or respond in the right way? Or, did they like talking to me? Or, did they like what I had to say to them? Or, were they impressed or were they confused, right? I put all this pressure on myself. I put that pressure on myself in my marriage. If I take Erica out on a date, I feel this pressure, like I've got to be the world's greatest husband, not in a, I'm better than all you other husbands kind of way, but just in I hope you notice that I'm being a great husband kind of way. And the very same thing happens with my kids. There's this pressure that I feel that I put on myself, I know, to be the world's greatest dad. Right? Am I present enough? Am I fun enough? Am I funny enough? Am I engaged enough? Did I read enough? Did I play enough? When we're at the park, did I push on the swings enough? Or did I play tag enough? Right? I always have this feeling that other dads or other parents are evaluating me. Okay, and all of you dads out there, you may not have the same personality type as me. It's an Enneagram personality that I'm describing here for any of you that know what that is, or that you're into the Enneagram at all. But so here's the thing, though: you may not have the same personality type as me, but I am sure, if I took a guess, I am sure that you too, you want to be the best dad, or you want to be the best dude that you can be too. And so that got me thinking about what it is from God's perspective that makes us a great dad, or that makes us a great dude. I mean, it got me thinking, what criteria does God actually use to evaluate us? What yardstick does God use when he measures all of us, every single one of us, dudes or not? What is he looking for? I mean, is it Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie-like looks? Is it Albert Einstein-like intelligence? Is it Jeff Bezos-like wealth? Is it Jimmy Fallon-like charm? Is it Michael Jordan or Serena Williams-like athleticism? Or is it Taylor Swift-like popularity? Okay? Here's the Bible's answer to each of those questions. No, 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 and no. That's 6. I think I got them all there. Okay? It's not it. Okay? It's not charm, it's not wit, it's not wealth, it's not, Christian music only playing on your Spotify playlist. It's not big followings on social media. It's not perfect looking families and perfect looking houses or perfect looking photos on Instagram. Okay? And so that brings us back to the question then, what criteria does God then use to evaluate us? What yardstick does he use to measure us? Right? When he chooses people for some of the big time assignments that he gives out, what's he looking for? So now, before I tell you what that is, before I tell you what it is that he's looking for, let me tell you who it is that had it. It's the Old Testament hero, David. Okay? He's the shepherd boy who defeated Goliath and became the king of the entire nation of Israel. He was kind of a big deal. Okay? He's mentioned 600 times in the Old Testament and about 60 times in the New Testament. And his credentials, right? His resume was impressive, right? He was a great musician. When King Saul was depressed, he didn't turn to Prozac. Okay? He turned to David, whose skills on the harp would soothe Saul's troubles away. He's a great musician. Okay? He was a great warrior, right? The bad guys knew that they better not mess with David and his mighty men. Okay? He was also a great leader. Israel enjoyed years of economic well-being and political stability while David reigned as king, right? Israel experienced some of its most golden years while David was in office. And yet, while all of those things are incredibly impressive, okay, none of it is what God was looking for. Okay? There was something else about David that got God's attention. Okay? And when we learn what it is, we also learn what it is that actually doesn't score us any extra brownie points in God's eyes. And so today, I want you to see what it is that does get God's attention and what it is that doesn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn in the Old Testament, we're going to turn to the book of 1 Samuel to chapter 16, when God sends the prophet Samuel to appoint the next king over all of Israel. And so we'll start reading in verse 1. Here's what it says. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "You have mourned long enough for Saul. I have rejected him as king of Israel, so fill your flask with olive oil and go to Bethlehem. And find a man named Jesse who lives there, for I have selected one of his sons to be my king." Okay, so King Saul he's kind of been a disastrous king for some time now, and his time at the top is over. And so God is sending Samuel to this man named Jesse's house to appoint one of Jesse's sons to be the next king. And so Samuel, he goes to Bethlehem, he goes to Jesse's house, and he kind of sets the scene, and he prepares the moment to be a special one and a sacred one before God. And then he invites Jesse and his sons to join him. Here's verse 6. When they arrived, Samuel took one look at Eliab and thought, "Surely this is the Lord's anointed." Okay? Samuel gets one look at Eliab, and he's thinking, boom, done. That was easy. My job is over. He's the man. And now the Bible doesn't really describe Eliab much, but for Samuel to be so convinced so quickly with so little information, he must have been an impressive looking dude. I mean, I'm thinking like homecoming king, maybe, quarterback of the football team, maybe GQ magazine material. Maybe he had Fortune 500 written all over him. I don't know, but whatever it was, he apparently looked like king material. And so everybody assumed He's the guy. Samuel did, Jesse did, he's the guy. But what does God say? God says, no, he's not the guy. In fact, he uses this moment to teach everyone a lesson, you and me included. Look at verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. He says this, people judge by outward appearance, but hear this, Midcurrent. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Friends, here's what we got to understand about this. Here's what we got to understand about God. God doesn't do externals, right? He's not into status. He's not into appearance. He's not into job title or anything else on the outside. None of that floats God's boat. For God, it's always a heart thing. And when the Bible or when God or when Jesus or anyone else talk about the heart, that they're not talking about the veins and the ventricles and the valves pumping inside of us. No, the heart refers to the real you, right? It's the inner life. It's the center of life. It's the place where God works in you and changes you from the inside out. The heart is the spiritual epicenter of our lives. It's where we discern and decide and where we desire and where we dedicate, right? Our hearts to us are what an engine is to a car, or what a hard drive is to a computer, or what a cockpit and a pilot are to a plane. It's the command center of it all. And so here's what we need to understand when we see what God is saying. Here's what we need to understand. When God measures us, he measures our hearts. Let me say that again. When God measures us, he measures our hearts. Hearts are that important. That's why the Bible says in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for it affects everything you do. It is the wellspring of life, right? Everything flows from the heart. And when God measures us, he measures our hearts. And David had a great heart. He goes down in history, actually, as the man after God's own heart. And it's that heart that made him king. In a lot of ways, that's how he got into office. It had nothing to do with giving speeches or kissing babies or winning debates or making promises. See, here's how this all played out. Eliab was not the guy. And so the search for the next king continued. Here's verse 8. Then Jesse told his son Abinadab to step forward and walk in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, this is not the one the Lord has chosen. And so next Jesse summoned Shimeah, but Samuel said, neither is this the one the Lord has chosen. And in the same way, get this, in the same way, all 7 of Jesse's sons were presented to Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen any of these. This is too good. I mean, it's like they're in a Miss America pageant here. They're all parading out in front of Samuel. I imagine, the formal wear competition and the talent competition, the whole 9 yards. But the results are the same every time. Eliab is not the guy. Abinadab is not the guy. Nor are any of the 7 sons that Jesse struts out in front of Samuel, which prompted Samuel to throw out a last-minute Hail Mary. He heaves up a half-court shot at the buzzer. Look at verse 11. Then Samuel asked, are these all the sons you have? He's going like, is this it? Is there anyone else? I was sent here to anoint the next king. Is there anyone else? Is there any chance you forgot someone? Is there any chance you got any more sons around here? And it turns out there was one more son. Okay? Look at how verse 11 ends. There is still the youngest. He's referring to David. There is still the youngest, Jesse replied. But, don't you love that? When people say yes, but, what are they actually saying? They're saying no, right? Yes, but. It means no. Yeah, there is still the youngest, Jesse replied. But he's out in the fields watching the sheep and the goats. Translation, he's not the guy. Right? Jesse's going, if you didn't like Eliab, if you didn't like Abinadab, if you didn't like any of the others, then David surely is not the guy that you or that God is looking for. But Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives. And so Jesse sends for David, and when sheep boy arrives, God says, yep, he's the one. He's the one. Okay? And here's how this scene then concludes in verse 13. So as David stood there among his brothers, imagine how they're feeling, right? As you know, the guy hanging out with the goats walks in and gets chosen, right? Imagine how they're feeling. It says, as David stood there among his brothers, Samuel took the flask of olive oil he had brought, and he anointed David with oil. And the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on. Now, interestingly enough, the Bible does describe David as a dark and handsome young man, but God made it clear that he is not interested. He is not looking at, he is not evaluating, he is not measuring outward appearances. Because what we've learned is that when God measures us, he measures our hearts. When God evaluates us, he evaluates our hearts. When God looks at us, he looks straight to the heart. And there must have been something about the heart of David, because as I've already mentioned before, David is referred to as the man after God's own heart. And so, Midcurrent, let me just ask you today, how's your heart? See, I think God's looking for some of us right here, right now, to use in some pretty big, some pretty significant ways. If I could take that a step further here on Father's Day, I think that God is looking for some men right here, right now, to use in some pretty big ways. In their families, in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in their churches, in their places of work. I think God wants to hand out some king-sized assignments and some king-sized blessings. The only prerequisite is that we have a heart that's fully surrendered to God. And so as we sit here in the midst of 2020, right, a year that, goodness, nobody saw coming, and if we're honest, nobody really knows the way out of, I'm wondering how many of us are willing to say, God, take my heart, it's yours. I wonder how many of us are willing to say that today. God, take my heart. It's yours. It's all yours. My father-in-law tells this old story about the Pope who needed a heart transplant. And as the Pope spoke to the masses from the balcony of the Vatican, hundreds of thousands of people heard of the need. And with great emotion, they cried out, Pope, take my heart. Okay, that's the best Italian accent I've got. They cried out, Pope, take my heart. And so the Pope decided that the only way to decide whose heart to take was to drop a feather from the balcony. And whoever it landed on would get to give the Pope his heart. And so as the feather was gently falling toward the people, you could hear and you could see the people responding, Pope, take my heart. Pope, take my heart. Folks, I think that's a lot like us. Right? We talk a good game, but we're a little hesitant. We know what's at stake. When God has our hearts, He has us. And so let me ask you again, how is your heart? Does God have it all? As you look at your heart right now, what do you see? As God looks at your heart right now, what does He see? What I want us to ask us to do right now, I want to ask us to perform a little bit of a spiritual angiogram on ourselves right now, right? Heart check time for us. And so as we do that, let me ask a few more questions then about our hearts. Let me ask a few more questions about your heart. Right? Is it possible, or do you have a distracted heart? Right? Are you just trying to do too many things to try to please too many people these days? Are you going in too many different directions? Is your busyness and your dividedness and your distractedness, is it hindering your ability to get close to God or your ability to get close to others in your life? Maybe it's a job, maybe it's some hobby, maybe it's some project, maybe it's some committee. All of that is good stuff. Right, that we need in our life, but not at the expense of pulling us apart or pulling us away from our relationship with God and our relationship with the people that God put in our life. So once again, as you look within you, let me ask you now this. Do you have a damaged heart? Maybe your heart's been broken, or wounded, or it's been ripped out and stomped on by another person as the breakup or the divorce or the betrayal or the fight that has just left you with a whole lot of hurt. And that hurt is sitting in your heart, and it is starting to corrode. It is starting to turn toxic. Right? Resentment and bitterness, they're growing like dandelions grow in my front yard in the month of May. Friends, if that's you've got to let go of that hurt. You have to turn it all over to God and let God get a hold of your heart. Let Him soften, let Him touch, and let Him transform your heart in a way that only He can do. So the Bible says in Psalm 147, verse 3, this is the Lord, right? He heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. Friends, some of you in the moments and in the days and in the weeks to follow, you need to go to God with the hurts in your heart. Ask Him to heal and to bandage your wounds and allow His love and allow His grace to heal a damaged heart. Okay? And as we're looking within ourselves, one last question I have to ask, right? Is it possible, right? Do you have a dirty heart? Right? Is there some sin stuff going on in your life that you haven't dealt with, right? Stuff that you need to deal with, stuff that you've swept under the rug for far too long, stuff that you know isn't honoring to God. You see, even though David was a man after God's own heart, it doesn't mean that his heart was bulletproof, right? That there was a whole chapter in his life when his heart got junked up by sin. And for months, David refuses to face the facts and confront the reality of where he was. Finally, he did. And he prayed a prayer that maybe you need to pray, right? That prayer is recorded for us in Psalm 51. In verses 1 and 2, he says, "Have mercy on me, O God, because of your unfailing love. Because of your great compassion, blot out the stain of my sin. Wash me clean from my guilt. Purify me from my sin." Later he says in verse 10, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." Friends, sin can mess up our hearts, and so maybe you need to pray that very prayer. Create in me a clean heart, O God. If that's the case, I want to give you an opportunity to pray with me right now. God, I know that I sigh a big relief to know that you are not evaluating me based on how perfect I am or how perfect my parenting is or how perfect a dad that I am. And I pray that you would find ways to reinforce and to remind each of us of that truth in precisely the way that we need to hear it. God, for those whose hearts are distracted, would you help give them clarity? Would you help give them wisdom and courage to realign their priorities, to realign their values so that what they care most about, God, are the things that you care most about. God, for those whose hearts are damaged, tired, worn out, God, would you help them to see and sense that your arms are open wide? Would you help them, to know deep in their souls that you are the one who restores souls, that will renew their strength, and that will repair a damaged and broken heart. And God, for those whose hearts are dirty with the stain that sin leaves in our lives, would you draw them to you? I pray that your call on their life and the grace that you so freely give, I pray that it would cause them to do an about face, to turn from whatever it is that has left that stain and turn to you. And God, for those who have never turned to you, never opened their hearts to you, never said yes to you and the grace and forgiveness that Jesus has made possible for every single one of us, I pray that they might do that in this very moment. I pray that they might say yes to you in this moment, to be the men and to be the women and to maybe be the dads and the fathers that you created them to be. We pray all this in your name. Amen. Hey, well, if you did indeed say yes to Jesus for the very first time, I would love to have you send a very simple email with 3 words, the words, "I said yes," to yes@midcurrentchurch.org. We want to follow up with you, and we want to be cheering you on in any way that we can. And finally, let me just wish to all of you dads a happy Father's Day. I just want to say thanks so much for tuning in today. We hope to see you right back here next week at 9 and 10:30 a.m. Last week, we finished a series called God Is That You, where we learned about 4 questions that I think help us to follow God's leading more in our life. Well, I am excited to let you know that next week, our good friend James is going to be back for 2 weeks to add 2 bonus questions to this series, God Is That You? And trust me, you do not want to miss either of them. And so we will see you right back here online next week.